Hello there, I'm Gloria Macarenko. Now celebrating and capturing moments that make us human. This is Our Vancouver. Coming up, do gulls gall you? We're going to find out why the pesky seagull is actually the canary in the proverbial coal mine. And an award-winning photographer shows us the what, where, and how of capturing nature's candid moments. But first, queer moments on film as the 34th annual Vancouver Queer Film Festival kicks off another season. Well, here we are, nearing the beginning of the film festival season. So think Toronto Film Fest, of course, the Vancouver International Film Festival in the fall. But one of the first festivals to kick things off in our city is the Vancouver Queer Film Festival, and that starts mid-August. And I am so pleased to have the Executive Director, Brandon Yan, with us today. Brandon, hello there and welcome.
Thank you for having me.
34 years, not you personally with this particular film festival.
It feels that way though sometimes.
Okay, well what can you tell me about the evolution of this festival?
Yeah, so our film festival started in the late 80s in conjunction with the Vancouver Gay Games, and so we were kind of the cultural component. We started as a group of friends getting together, throwing queer film up on a bed sheet in the West End, and now we're in cinemas across the city, and so we've kind of grown into this, cultural event that happens every year.
There's something kind of community, though, isn't there, about a bed sheet on the wall and people gathered around? I kind of like that idea, too.
Actually, over the last 2 years, that's kind of how people got together in their little bubbles during COVID. They watched at home, kind of in that aspect, too.
Okay, and you've also been in the position of executive director for these past few years, trying to put on a festival with so much uncertainty. What's that been like for you?
It has been hard and difficult. I think it's taken a toll on just, not even our community members, but our staff, and folks feel isolated, so I think everyone's kind of rearing to get back into cinemas, and we'll still have an online option for folks who can't get back into cinemas.
Okay, let's talk about that. How complicated does that make things, putting it on? Do you want to be in a seat? Do you want to be at home? A different package? A different, does it complicate things?
It's a hybrid event, so we'll have over 20 events in person, which is about half of what we would normally do prior to COVID. But then you have lots of options to watch online. So most of our programming will be available to anyone across BC.
Okay, now we're just wrapping up Pride here in Vancouver, giant parade last weekend, that kind of thing. Why do you think it's important to represent the queer community on screen?
Yeah, I think that's the core of what we do, is to illuminate, celebrate, and advance queer lives at our organization. And Pride is an aspect of representation. And the way we learn about ourselves and the world is through media and film, watching the news, people seeing us on TV. And so we fill that kind of void where maybe we're not seeing full representations of ourselves. And so for me, it's always about those young folks or those folks questioning, aspects of their identity and seeing possibilities. And I think that's really what we get to, is how do we provide those possibilities for folks out in the world who might belong to the 2S LGBTQ+ community.
Okay, let's explore some of those possibilities. You brought the program in with you.
It's beautiful. Look at that.
It is. It's thick too.
Yeah, it's a lot of work putting this together.
Tell me about. Why don't we start with the opening film?
Sure. Our opening film is. It feels very fitting to reopen the film festival in person with the Empress of Vancouver. And it is a local documentary. So it's been a while since we've had a local film open the festival, and it's about Olive Howe, and also a story about Vancouver and our evolution as a city when it comes to queer politics and art in the city. And that's going to be on August 11th at the Playhouse Theatre. If folks are just I really just want young folks to see this film too, because it's about the first Pride Parade in 1981 as well, which we just had, obviously the Pride celebration. But it's how do we get there? And we have to remember about the progress that we've made over the last many years, and to remember to keep going, because I think we've seen some troubling trajectories on on that front lately as well.
Yeah, no, you make a very good point. I know we've just had statistics released by StatsCan talking about hate crimes against, gender-based hate crimes and that type of thing. So you make some very good points.
Yeah.
But I do not expect you to go through the entire program with us today. You talked about the opening film.
Yeah.
What other highlights can you share?
Sure. Our youth gala film features a two-spirit young person from the Narragansett First Nation. I believe they're in Rhode Island. And it's our youth gala, and it's about the triumph and power of youth and queer youth and two-spirit youth, and juggling the culture, identity, politics, and just young people wanting to be young people and express themselves fully. That's our youth gala. It's going to be at the Cinematheque, I believe, on August 16th. Yep, just checking my notes.
Oh, that is excellent. Listen, any other highlights you want to share with us?
Yeah, I also want to talk about Emergence Out of the Shadows. It's also a local documentary about the South Asian community. And actually, CBC's very own Anita Bath will be hosting the Q&A after that screening at the York Theatre, and that's on August 19th. And then lastly, I think folks should check out the shorts programs, because I think short films have come a long way. And one in particular is the Obsidian program, Queer Black Cinema, As I Am, and it was programmed by Malik Cuff, who was one of our guest curators this year. And it's about the intersections of being Black and queer, the joys, the resistance that's in part of that movement, and I think it's worthwhile for everyone to check out.
Have you seen most of the films yourself?
I have seen a lot of the films.
Okay. I don't expect you to do that deep of research, because there's a lot of organizational details to tie up as well. Brendan, thank you so much for coming in, and all the best with the festival.
Of course, thank you for having me.
Yeah, you need to press here. This is our Vancouver.
All right, they are oh so adorable, but service dogs can also be a critical lifeline for many people. A BC-based organization is busy raising and training puppies to help those in need of assistance. And we visited the Pacific Assistance Dog Society in Burnaby to see just what it takes to get them ready for duty.
Today we are with 2 litters, 18 puppies in total, the Shiny litter and the Encanto litter, who get to meet their puppy raisers for the first time today. So it's a very big day on campus. We train assistance dogs, so that includes dogs that help people in wheelchairs or mobility devices. We train dogs for hearing clients that alert when the phone rings or the doorbell rings. And we also train what is called an AFD, or an accredited facility dog. Puppies spend their time with the breeder caretaker and their mother for the first 8 weeks of life. After the breeder caretaker stage, they go with puppy raisers from 8 weeks to about 18 months. They're then assessed by the staff here at PADS to make sure that they still want to work and that they have the aptitude to do the jobs ahead of them. A lot of different factors go into determining the length of the career, but really it's what's best for the dog. So when it's time to retire, the staff make sure that that happens, and we've had a few of our dogs retire recently, and they go to live with families that take care of them in their golden years.
All right, it's time for one of our favorite features. You got it. This is where we showcase the photographs that you send us. So thank you very much. We'll start off with this one. Jackie Eatmon sent in this one from her backyard in Surrey, and she says the bees have taken over the bird bath entirely. Thank you so much, Jackie. Kirby Opina was working on the 10th floor of St. Paul's Hospital when the fireworks started. What a great front seat view from way up high. Thanks for sharing that. And finally, Richard Topping has captured another unusual moment, this time as he sailed on a ferry near Nanaimo. An amazing study in contrast there, Richard. Thank you very, very much. And we hope you'll send us some of your favorites too. Just email them to bcphotos@cbc.ca. bcphotos@cbc.ca. Coming up, what on earth is wet bulb temperature? Johanna Wagstaffe explains what it is and why it might be a good thing to understand it.
The wet bulb temperature is what meteorologists use to measure the amount of humidity in the atmosphere. It's essentially recording how much evaporation can cool the temperature. And we use wet bulb temperatures in an instrument called hygrometer. Yes, I have one. This one's from the 60s, and a hygrometer gives you that relative humidity reading. What it does is it takes the regular air temperature or the dry temperature on the left and the wet bulb temperature here on the right. Now, wet bulb thermometers are always covered in muslin and then soaked in water. And how quickly that water evaporates away tells you the wet bulb temperature. And the difference between the two is the relative humidity in the atmosphere. I also have one that records that reading on an hourly basis. I digress. The importance of the wet bulb temperature is that it really acts like your body and your body's ability to cool down through sweat. The more humidity in the environment, the slower the evaporation rate and the harder your body is to cool down. The reason why we're hearing so much more about wet bulb temperatures lately with all of the heat waves going around is it really is the humidity that is deadly. Once the wet bulb temperature exceeds the temperature of your body, then your body can't sweat and cool down in the process. Climate change is speeding up the evaporation rate, so unfortunately the likelihood of humid events around the world will continue to increase in a warming climate. So expect to hear more about wet bulb temperatures and hygrometers in the future. Johanna Wagstaffe, CBC News, Vancouver.
Hi, I'm David from Dragon Boat BC, and you're watching Our Vancouver.
Johanna, thank you so much. You are watching Our Vancouver. I'm Gloria Macarenko. Now, our next guest has already won several awards for his incredible work capturing candid shots of Western Canada's wildlife, interesting shots of the night sky. He's been winning photography awards since he was a teenager, and he's only 21 years old now. We're very happy to have Liron Gertsman with us today. Hello.
Thanks so much
there.
for having me.
Okay, so this is pretty cool. This year's Audubon Photography Award, and I know you won 2 other awards within this category, but why don't you start with the award-winning shot?
Yeah, well, it's been an exciting year. Not something I expected to happen, but I won the professional category of the Audubon Photography Awards this year with a photo of a white-tailed ptarmigan.
Right.
This kind of mountain chicken with the mountain scenery behind it. And in addition to that one, I also got the professional category honorable mention with a photo of sharp-tailed grouse, and then also won the video award with some sharp-tailed grouse. So not something that I expected to happen, but something that was certainly very exciting.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
Seriously. So let's start with the ptarmigan.
Yes.
The white-tailed ptarmigan. When you capture that shot, do you know in that instant, that's it?
I was pretty excited about it. So the white-tailed ptarmigan is a bird that is very hard to find because they only live way up in the mountains, above where trees grow in that alpine habitat. So they can be hard to find. It can be a lot of hiking, but they live in this beautiful environment. So I really wanted to capture them within the context of their environment. So I actually did something I don't normally do and used a wider angle lens and captured this bird within its environment with the mountains behind. And I guess that's kind of what caught people's eyes. And within the moment, I was certainly pretty excited just to be there and witnessing that amazing sight.
Award or not, right? You
Yes.
knew you had something special there. So how much work do you put into getting those shots? I mean, you said you had to hike really high. Was that your first time up there? Was this just happenstance, or did you know that you could?
Yeah.
The likelihood of spotting one of these was
Well,
pretty good.
this was hiking around for a few hours.
Okay.
And when it comes to planning shots, it really is all over the place. Sometimes I've been planning photos, I've been having a photo in mind for months or years.
Right.
And this is often the case with like astrophotography, photographing the night sky.
Right.
Because you know where in the sky the Milky Way or this nebula is going to be, so you can plan things out. Wildlife photography is a little more challenging because you never know where the birds are going to be and where that wildlife is going to be. But I really like to think about the photos I take before I take them as much as I can.
How did you get started at all of this? How did you know you loved taking photographs?
Well, I think growing up in this part of the world played a big role. Vancouver is just beautiful, and we have such incredible access to wildlife and to photography opportunities around here. So as a kid, like talking 5, 6 years old, I would go out into the local parks with my parents, just go for walks, and nature caught my eye, especially birds.
Right.
And my parents had like a little point-and-shoot camera, and I would, beg them to borrow that camera, and I would start taking pictures. And from there, it just kept going and going until we got to where we are today.
Let's talk about your tools.
Yes.
Okay, we've got some amazing. Where do you want to start? With this
Yeah.
lens here. So describe what we're looking at here.
So this here is the setup I use for most of my astrophotography images. This here is a device called a star tracker,
Okay.
which you actually point towards the North Star, and it counters the rotation of the Earth, which lets you take really, really long exposures of the night sky.
Now, who would even think that you'd be worried about a star blurring as you're taking a shot? So when we're talking long exposures, how long?
Yeah, so on the shorter end, something like 20 seconds. On the longer end, 5, 10 minutes. I mean, you can even do hours with something like this with the right setup if you'd like, and that just helps pull out as much detail as possible.
Okay, can we look at one of the photographs that you're talking about here? Come on
Yeah.
over here. So something like this, that's what you would have used to capture this?
So this is like a couple hours of exposure time, because this nebula here is not something you can see with your naked eye. But this is very much a real, scientifically accurate scene photographed of the sisters or the lions with the North America nebula behind it, taken from the same spot just throughout several hours, using different filters and different exposure lengths to reveal all this detail in the night sky that is just hidden in plain sight.
How do you even go about planning for a shot like this?
So this one was months in the making. I'm using computer softwares that kind of simulate where in the sky different things are going to be, and I can combine that with any foreground. And I discovered that this nebula would be right over top of these beautiful peaks in the wintertime. So I just needed to wait for the perfect night with the right moon, the right weather, and it finally came and I managed to pull the shot off.
Oh, so beautiful. It's so, so beautiful. Let's go back to look at another camera that you brought in, and this would be more something you'd use for nature photography?
Yeah, that's right. So this is a telephoto lens. This is a 400 millimeter lens. So this lets me get really close up with birds and wildlife without actually having to get that close to them myself, so I can capture those natural behaviors without disturbing them at all.
Okay, so what do you plan to do with all of this?
That's a great question. Well, this has been my passion for so long. I recently graduated this spring from UBC with a biology degree, but now I'm pursuing photography full time. So I'm taking photos, selling photos, but I'm also really passionate about bringing people out into these natural spaces to experience things for themselves. So I also run nature tours and photography workshops centered around some of the beautiful spectacles that we have in this part of the world.
I can't wait to see more. If this is you at 21, Liron, I mean, you've got so much more to offer. Beautiful images. Thank you for coming in.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
It's all part of the poem, and the story runs like a soundtrack.
If you would like to go and see some live music, art punk band Metric is bringing its Doom Scroller tour to the Orpheum Theatre August 13th.
Door is open, the path is clear. Why the problem with misconnections?
And you can catch old school 80s pop rockers Doug and the Slugs, just one of the headliners at the Rock Maple Ridge concert, August 14th.
Hey, Grant Lawrence from CBC Music here, and I would like to share with you an early contender for what I consider to be one of the most beautiful songs of the year. I'll play that tune for you in a moment, but first, I'd like to introduce you to, or maybe reintroduce you to, the artist. It's someone that I've paid attention to ever since I heard this debut single back in 2012.
I stood in an empty street today, all by myself, carving your name into the clay. Why'd you have to go away? Why'd you leave me in this way? I'm a sucker for your face.
Yes, that is Dartmouth, Nova Scotia singer-songwriter Mo Kenny with that exceptional debut song from 2012 called Sucker. That tune won the prestigious SOCAN Songwriting Prize from the Songwriters Society of Canada, which is a pretty great career start. Mo Kenny was first discovered by Halifax troubadour Joel Plaskett when he heard Mo's demos when he visited Mo's high school. He remembered Mo, and a few years later, Joel produced Mo Kenny's debut album that featured Sucker. Next came more success on Mo Kenny's Juno-nominated second album, In My Dreams.
Yeah, I faked it from the song to the dance. Opened up my eyes, I saw that chance and I took it. And I know that you would hate me shooting
That is Mo Kenny from Dartmouth with I Faked It. Now that tune won first prize in the USA songwriting competition in 2015, and the trophies became a career trend. Over the course of Mo Kenny's career, Mo has won a combination of 13 East Coast Music and Nova Scotia Music Awards. This year, Mo Kenny has returned with an absolutely lovely new single that looks like it is going to be climbing up the CBC Music Top 20. Oh, wow, sink into that one, eh? That is the amazing vocal and musical talent of Mo Kenny on the new single, With You, that deals with, according to Mo, a, quote, true-to-life account of loss, unquote. With You by Nova Scotia's Mo Kenny is currently climbing the CBC Music Top 20, and that's the song that you need to add to your playlist for this week. I'm Grant Lawrence. I'll check in with you again soon.
Hey, you're going to want to perk up your ears for this story. It's all about whale sounds. The Sheringham Point Lighthouse on Vancouver Island has placed a speaker on dry land, and it broadcasts from beneath the waves the songs of orcas and humpback whales and other marine music too. Just listen.
Sheringham Lighthouse Society has been a long time collaborator with DFO on our whale tracking system, where we've got these hydrophone systems around the Salish Sea and out along the west coast of Vancouver Island to monitor, in particular, southern resident killer whales, but all killer whales, humpbacks, other cetaceans that are passing by and moving into the area. But we've also built a speaker as part of this with the Sheringham Lighthouse Society, so folks that are going down and enjoying the lighthouse, they can also listen to the underwater soundscape. Humpbacks are often, they'll do feeding calls, they'll also do grunts, and they'll also do song at certain times of the year that we can pick up. The toothed whales that use echolocation, we can pick that up, and also white-sided dolphins, harbor porpoise, doll porpoise, and of course killer whales, which are very vocal, especially resident killer whales. That is a key spot for identifying when southern residents are coming into the Salish Sea, Harrow Strait, Gulf Islands. There's a lot of Chinook in that area, so these killer whales know that, and they're in there foraging, so they'll typically come in close there and hopefully get a good meal on their way into either into the Salish Sea, Harrow Strait, Gulf Islands area, or coming out after being in that area.
Coming up, is the annoying gull the proverbial canary in the coal mine? A couple of avid birders explain. Hi, welcome back to Our Vancouver. I'm Gloria Macarenko. Now, gulls are often seen as pests, nuisances. They steal our food. But are they really all that bad? Well, avid birders Connel Bradwell and Ryan Wilkes set out to better understand the maligned, misunderstood seagull.
Hi, I'm Ryan. And I'm Connell, and we're back. Today we're birding in an unusual place, in an office in downtown Victoria. And we're looking for a species that's often maligned and misunderstood, but it's one that many of us see almost every day.
Yeah, it's gulls.
Hey Brian,
Yeah.
What do you think of gulls?
Well, they're not really my favorite bird, to be honest, but I think I'm definitely starting to warm up to them after spending so much time watching them.
Do you think they'll be your favorite at the end of this video?
I'm not sure. So I've been watching gulls on the rooftops of buildings in downtown Victoria for the past couple of weeks, and it's been really interesting actually. I have a whole new appreciation for these birds. The reason that these gulls are nesting on the rooftops in this urban environment is because it's a flat, isolated surface on the top of these buildings, and that mimics their natural nesting environment, which includes rocky islands and cliff ledges as well. Also, while I've been watching them, I've really noticed how gulls are actually pretty gentle to one another, especially their mates. When you get to see them like this in the more secretive, intimate part of their lives, it really kind of starts to change your mind about what these birds are.
When you spend time in urban areas, you'll often be serenaded by that shrieking loud sound of gulls. But it might be hard to believe for us, but what sounds like a chaotic frenzy is actually a pretty complex form of communication. Each gull even has their own unique voice and sound, and that's something that the chicks learn in order to recognize their parents and vice versa. So when you hear the gulls calling, they're not just being loud and obnoxious, they're actually just chatting away. And that's a good sign of intelligence. They're actually so intelligent that they can even recognize individual people. So be nice to them. We've spent quite a bit of time filming the gulls here in downtown Victoria. We're gonna move to a more natural setting and see what they're up to.
When you come down to the beach, you're probably going to notice a mix of both adult and juvenile gulls. The easiest way to tell them apart is that the adults have really white markings, and also the adults have a distinct red mark on their beaks. Now, this spot is not leftover ketchup from birds stealing your fries. It's actually a sign of fitness in males, and it's also thought that the juveniles will peck at this spot on the beak in order to get fed.
So what are these gulls actually eating other than your lunch or your picnic? Well, they're opportunistic omnivores, which means they'll eat just about anything. I'm talking about things like starfish, crabs, herring, which they'll often eat whole. So to do this, they have to use a variety of different hunting techniques. And one of my favorites is when they eat things like crabs and clams. And what they do is they fly high with that animal, drop it on the rocks or a beach or a road in order to smash it open. And this is really, really clever and another sign of how intelligent they are.
Even the gulls that are nesting on the top of buildings in the city rely on fish and shellfish to feed their young. But what's happening now is that some of these gulls are turning to foods like French fries and raiding garbages because the availability of the food in the ocean is not as plentiful as it once was. So this is a sign to us that gulls are an important indicator species. They're telling us by being in these urban areas, by causing a ruckus, by being annoying, that maybe there's problems out in the ocean.
So studies are showing that gulls around the world are having a harder time finding their traditional food. And that's one of the reasons why they're in our urban environments. It's important for us to think about the wider picture and not necessarily to demonize these birds. Because if a highly adaptable species like gulls can't find enough food in the oceans, it's really not an issue on the gulls, it's our problem. All right, we're wrapping this video now. You spent a lot of time looking at gulls. Are they your favorites now?
I don't think they're my favorite bird, but I will say that I think they're underappreciated, they're smart, they're actually pretty good looking birds when you get close up and start to appreciate them. They're super adaptable, so they're pretty cool, but I don't think they're my favorite.
You know, I'll take that. I kind of love them though.
Hi, this is Charlie Christensen, and this is our Vancouver.
A new play featuring stories of Filipino migration to Canada played to sold-out crowds. Buto Buto Bones Are Seeds, that's the name of it. And it grapples with how the Filipino community tries to find identity here and belonging. Well, Leonora Angeles is a star and co-producer of the play. And Stephen Quinn spoke with her on CBC's morning radio show, The Early Edition.
Well, it's really about the story of an unknown Filipino immigrant in Canada, the first registered ever resident in British Columbia by the name of Ben Flores. And it's about Joy as well, another major character in the play, who is searching for her grandmother and had asked Ben, enlisted him to help. We are always questioning, the reasons why we're here, why we had to leave our homeland, so to speak. And the search for belonging, for identity, for a place in Canada is always, a constant question in our minds. And there are also, as an academic, as a social scientist, I'm really curious about those invisible stories, migration stories that we rarely talked about. Often the stories are rather painful, traumatic, given the conditions that people left behind, the journeys that they go through in life, and of course, the struggles that they experience resettling here in Canada.
Do you think Filipinos, more than other immigrant groups, has sort of a foot in both countries when they arrive here? Even when you build a life here in Canada, is there always a foot back home?
Yes, I would say it really depends on the kind of attachment and sense of longing. And this is, I think, what the play is raising. The question of how soon and how late, does it take for a Canadian immigrant to really remain attached to the homeland, or become a transnational, actor who traverses, two worlds of the homeland and then become part of that diaspora, or become a Canadian citizen. And how long does it take for them to forget or still remember their roots, their heritage, their language of their parents and their ancestors?
This sounds like quite a production. You've got an all Southeast Asian cast. You've got poets, writers, choreographers showcasing traditional theater forms, multiple organizations and theater production companies involved in this.
Yes.
Took 2 years to put together. Shows are sold out. What does this mean to the community, do you think?
Well, it's really a smashing success by my standards.
I think by any standard.
Yeah. And I think it's really set the bar, I would say, for community building in terms of harnessing the power of arts and cultural expression for community building, for citizenship and nation building. And yet it also, in a way, disrupts our, notion of the nation, right? Because you are now in a way where we're imagining a post-national sense of community building, especially in these difficult times, Stephen.
Leonora, it's so good to see you this morning. Thank you so much for coming in.
Well, thank you so much. And I hope that our audience will get to understand the meaning and the beauty and magic of theater.
I came here for you just like I promised. Lola!
It is a veritable Top Gun kind of job. A factory in Delta is making the wings of a very notable airplane. The CBC's Caroline Chan takes us inside.
My name is Amandeep Taylor. I'm the CEO of Avcorp Industries. Please come and have a look at our F-35 assembly area for the outboard wing for the C variant. This program we've been working on since in sort of the inception of it, and every countries were still still deciding, to develop this plane. This is the what we call the outboard wing assembly of the F-35 carrier variant. If you can see from the banner there, that's the outside portion of the wing that we assemble. for it to land on the ship, you need a larger and a stronger wing, because one, this thing's fast, and when you're coming to land, you need to really slow it down. We complete everything that's on there, and when it goes to the Fort Worth facility, it basically few pins to assemble to the aircraft itself, and then it's ready to go. We're the only one in the world who are building this. Right here in Vancouver, we're the only company that has all the tools and been awarded this work. And this work is awarded to us even before Canadian government had decided that they were going to go for this, to go into negotiations to with the Lockheed Martin for the F-35 program. Every time when we go and tell the story, everybody gets excited. Well, that's how I came into, when I knew that this company, what they were doing, I was excited to join, and I'm here 23 years later.
Coming up, whoever said a promise made is a promise kept did not have municipal politics in mind. We're going to dive into a debate unique to the city of Vancouver. Hello and welcome back to Our Vancouver. I'm Gloria Macarenko. Well, in fewer than 3 months, every town and city in BC is going to elect a new mayor and council. But in Vancouver, voters will also appoint a park board. It's unique in Canada, and as Justin McElroy explains, it's the source of seemingly endless debate.
What a difference a year makes.
Is just another example of how ineffective the elected park board is.
That was in 2021. Mayoral candidate Ken Sim, who finished runner-up 4 years ago to Kennedy Stewart, promised to try and get the province to get rid of the park board. But yesterday he announced his park board team, and the fact his tune had changed.
Vancouverites deserve well-run parks now. We can't wait 3 to 4 years to make an administrative change. And so what we're going to do is we're going to run a bunch of strong candidates to win a majority on the elected park board. People with incredible lived experiences who have the skills to fix our parks.
Fix the parks and keep the park board. Sim's ABC team will now have candidates focused on the same things as everyone else: park infrastructure, maintenance, and the never-ending controversy over the Stanley Park bike lane, promising to improve it.
This isn't complicated. If you go to every single major city in North America and Europe, they've already done this. And they have multimodal transportations where cars exist to coexist with bikes and pedestrians. This is no different.
Vancouver is the only big city in Canada with an independent park board. And with Sim's reversal, every party this election supports keeping it. That's despite polling that shows the majority of voters want to get rid of it. Half of people who responded to this poll earlier this month want it gone.
There's a significant level of animosity. Now,
he says the continued controversies over park board actions, from beach logs to bike lanes to tent encampments to taking 3 years to approve park drinking, has hurt its legitimacy.
Even if you're happy with some of the decisions that they've made, there's a lot of people who still believe that it should be gone.
But for his part, Sim doesn't seem to worry if keeping the parks board is unpopular.
An ABC Vancouver government will not base our decisions on polls. We will do what's right by the city.
Though there's one poll Sim does have to care about, the one on October 15th, when voters choose their next mayor, council, and park board. Justin McElroy, CBC News, Vancouver.
You're watching Our Vancouver.
Wildfires are raging in British Columbia. And well, this year, there have been 2,600 wildfires across the country. Several larger ones are much closer to home, and some of them can get so big that they generate a phenomenon known as fire clouds. The CBC's Fiona Odlum explains.
Pyrocumulus clouds, or fire clouds, are dense cumulus cloud formations associated with wildfires, and they can make a bad situation worse and fast. Cumulus clouds are those puffy white cotton ball-like clouds that we see on a nice fair weather day. Wildfires can give off a lot of heat and moisture-heavy water vapor, which can create clouds. Those clouds are called pyrocumulus. When air over the fire becomes superheated, it rises in a large column. As the heated air with the moisture rises, it rushes up the smoke column into the atmosphere. That moisture then condenses into droplets. Sometimes the moisture condenses in the cloud and then falls as rain, which can extinguish the fire. But if the fire is large enough, the air it produces can create what is called dry lightning and spark another fire. Plus, a pyrocloud can cause a downdraft of cool air that spreads away from the thunderstorm and can cause the wildfire to spread. Fire clouds look much like thunderheads before a big thunderstorm. They're often grayish to brown in color because of the ash and smoke associated with the fire.
Now, you might already know that Team Canada won the Honda Celebration of Light competition last weekend. That's the fireworks show. But you might not know that more than 1 million people watched that event held at English Bay over 3 nights. So we're going to take you now behind the scenes on the barge where all the magic occurs.
I'm surrounded by what we call mortars or guns. The wire that you see here is connected to a firing module, which then connects by 2 wires all the way down to the end, along with the other number of modules, to the computer firing system. We use a Fire One. So this has 32 cues on it, which means during the show, up to 32 pulses will be shot from the computer at within 1,000th of a second, depending on how you code, to light this piece of what we call quick match or fuse, which lights then this 75 mil shell. On the bottom here is a little cup. Inside that cup is a lift charge, just black powder. When that black powder goes, it lights a fuse on the bottom of this ball. And when you see just kind of a spark trail going up, but not really an effect, that's that fuse burning. When that fuse gets to the middle, it hits another pocket of black powder, which breaks it open and simultaneously lights all the stars that are packed around it. And that's the break in the sky. We lay out the shells so that they go in order, so it's easier for us to effectively and efficiently plug them into the module. And this year we've had everything set up in plenty of time. We've had great weather.
When we bring you these stories here at CBC Vancouver, we have award-winning photographers out capturing the images that say so much. Still images can add context and bring a lot more to the understanding of an event or an issue. So here are some of the latest images from what happened this past week. And that's all for our Vancouver for this week. I hope you can join me weekday afternoons on CBC Radio 1 for On the Coast. For now, goodbye.